I don't want this dream of yours to come true. And I want to tell you why.
Why?
Because I feel like you're gonna get there, you're gonna sit in the cockpit, and you're immediately gonna die and ascend to heaven, and I'll never see you again.
Just has a stroke.
He's just gonna be like,
thing,
there's no
you
point in living anymore, and then he just...
Leave me in my virtual reality world.
He just floats away, and he's just like, I've done everything I need to do in life. Hello, and welcome to Annie Chatbox, episode 21, the big 2-1. We're officially legal in the United States. But not in, I mean, we would have been a couple episodes ago, I think, in England, but the majority of us are Americans, so deal. Anyway, hello and welcome, and thank you for joining us for Annie Chatbox episode 21. My name is Cassie, and I will be your host today. I took a small vacation last week. I'm back this week with a bang. But before we go ahead and continue, I want to go ahead and get our social links out of the way. You can follow us at twitter.com/theanniechatbox if you'd like to follow our tweets. They don't happen a whole lot, but they do let you know when we have an episode out, so definitely check that out. You can also write us an email at anniechatmail@gmail.com if you'd like to. You don't have to. Obviously, most of you have defaulted to not do so, but hey, we would appreciate one or two. I'm not salty, it's all good. Also, if you don't want to find us on YouTube, if this is not where you're listening to us, you might be listening to us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or SoundCloud. But just so you know, we do have a YouTube as well. You can just search for the Annie Chatbox. And if you'd like, you can also follow us on Patreon or, donate if you'd like at patreon.com/AnnieChatbox. Whew! Glad we got that over. Now let's talk about who's here today. So, like I said before, my name is Cassie, and I'm here. I also have two lovely gentlemen here. One of them hailing from over the pond. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Jonathan Joestar, as everyone here likes to call me, or Drango, as the wider internet also knows me as.
I heard that slip on Cammy's part last episode, and it made me giggle. We also have the man of many facades, or at least he tries to pretend so, Mr. Craig over there.
Facades? I don't know what you're talking about. I have you all... I got it, and I got it. Yeah, that thing consumed me, and that's where I was last week. I said, sorry guys, I can't deal. I'm too far in, and I've now gotten out of the persona hole, but there are lingering thoughts.
And that's why he marathoned the anime that he was supposed to be watching right before this episode.
Literally within 2 days, but it was worth it.
Thou art I, and I am thou.
I think it's I am thou, thou art I.
Oh, Cass schooled you and she only played one of the Persona games.
Actually, I've been playing in Japanese mostly, so...
Excuses. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Persona. We're here to talk about anime. Because we love anime, or at least most of us do.
I don't.
And actually, I thought that we would actually have a very interesting conversation today about tropes. Because I know that one of the things that even avid anime watchers tend to complain about are tropes. The cardboard cutouts, the ongoing themes in anime, the ongoing instances or actions in anime that seem to take place every single season, or at least every single year at least once. And I thought we could just sit together and instead of, talk about what we hate, talk about what we like. Whether it be something that typically people don't love, or something that you feel that, in general, as anime fans, we tend to tolerate it because the mass majority do, whether they like it or not. So, why don't we get started here? I will kick it off with, I am totes into the tsunderes. I love them. I love tsunderes, which those viewers who are listening who don't know, a tsundere is one of the many deres, but it is basically a girl or boy, because male tsunderes are the best and are such a rare species, and I need more. God, do I need more.
They exist?
They do.
They're like the mythical unicorn.
They do exist. There are male tsunderes in Noragami, for example. There are male tsunderes in Oh god, I'm forgetting the name of the show. Anyway, the point is, they do exist, but they are not as prominent as the female tsundere, which is a male or female character who, or whatever gender you identify as. Please don't kill me.
I identify as a mop.
But somebody, a person who basically comes off as very standoffish or mean, or sometimes, and in most cases, very violent at first. But after you get to know them, you realize that they're actually very sweet, and deep down inside, they've got this small teddy bear for a soul, and you just love them in the end. So, yeah, I love those kind of characters, mostly because you do get that character development of why is this person the way they are. And in a lot of cases, for example, one of my favorite tsunderes being Asuka from Evangelion, you find out that the reason that she has this hard exterior is because, she had a freaking troubled, past, a very troubled past. The same could be said, for example, another staple tsundere being Taiga from Toradora. She comes off as very violent and very, very standoffish at first, if not truly just completely violent. But as you get to know her, you find out that she's also had some trouble, and she does put up walls for reasons. And I love characters like that. And while it is a trope, I feel like it's a trope with a lot of potential to give characters a jump start into who they are and why we might love them as a person later. Drops the mic.
The only issue I have with tsunderes is mostly because it seems like people have seen the popularity of characters like Asuka and Taiga, and they've gone and made a cookie cutter out of them.
Yeah,
and think this will make a popular character, and then it's just
well, that's what makes it
really
what makes it into a trope. But that's why I'm saying, and I think that's what's the point of this topic is, of course, there's bad tsunderes out there. There are tsunderes that get no development whatsoever, and then they're just kind of bad characters.
But yeah, Tiger is love.
I mean, you've also got like Shauna from Shakugan no Shauna, who's amazing. She's a great tsundere.
Yep.
Louise from
voiced by the same voice actress as Tiger as well.
Yep.
She does good
Louise
tsundere.
From, as Craig mentioned, from Zero no Sakaima, which I believe she also voiced her too.
So Rei Kugamiya is essentially a giant tsundere.
Pretty much. She's the go-to
She's good at it. Like, that's the thing about typecasting. People get typecasted because they are good at it. But anyway, so that was my first spiel. You guys can comment on it, or we can move on.
People like the tsunderes, and it sells.
It's great.
Should I go next?
Sure.
Since I will be following up with another dere.
Ooh, the dairy train.
While I do like certain tsundere characters, I tend to find myself drawn to another dere, which is the dandere characters, who, when you first meet them, tend to be very quiet and shy or just socially awkward and offish. But like with tsundere, the more you get to know them, the more they open up, the more they show that loving side, and that they can have a more extroverted side around the right people or the right person. Some examples of dandere are Yuki Nagato from Haruhi Suzumiya, Hinata from Naruto, also for her classes as a dandere, and I am blanking on any other examples right now.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, there are lots of danderes in anime. You know what I find most interesting about this, John? Is that you started it out with, I like tsunderes, but I love these quiet, awkward, cute characters that, come out of their shell eventually, and I'm just like, so you're in love with anime characters that are you. Whereas I feel like,
that's one of the reasons why I like them, is because I can relate to them.
Oh yeah, totally. And my punchline was going to be, whereas I think in the real world, women who you seem to be attracted to are the exact opposite. So that's very interesting to me, and it makes me giggle on the inside. But no, I can understand. I mean, to an extent, I think that's why I like tsunderes as well, is because I do tend to relate to tsundere characters from time to time. Not because I am outwardly violent, I mean, okay, maybe sometimes. But also there is that awkwardness of they're putting up a front because of they're trying to hide this other part of them that's very weak and sensitive. And I think that that's also, something that, with you and Dandares is very relatable. Because I know when I first met you, you were very quiet and you kind of were in the background. You were just this cute British guy that just never wanted to speak up, so. And now we know you and you won't shut up, so. I meant that in a good way. Do you have any opinions on Dandares, Greg?
Nope, not really. I guess the only thing I could say is, again, it's a trope that sells. They like
Well, all of these tropes that we're going to mention are going to sell. That's what makes them tropes, is because people are doing them over and over and over.
They essentially like the quiet, aloof, mysterious individuals, so they gotta be like, whoa, who's that person in the corner there reading a book all by themselves? Man, I want to get to know them. I want to know their backstory. What makes you tick? I will understand you. Insert character here. So, my thing that I like, a trope, is not a dairy. Or dairy. Lol. Basically, a good portion of a lot of shonen battles lead to an escalation where the villain tries to one-up them, but then they one-up them with an even bigger power. Good examples are JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Dragon Ball Z, and Naruto, Bleach, again, stuff like that.
Staples.
They have saying, staples. Staple of shonen, and it will never die.
This isn't even my final form!
Dun, dun, dun.
Yep, so... If you consider that a spoiler, or if you consider anything Dragon Ball related a spoiler, then where have you been? And you've been living under a rock, but Super Saiyan 3 was the shit. Where did his eyebrows go? He was fucking awesome. Me and my friend Matt back in the day were like, holy shit, his eyebrows disappeared, but he grew a fucking mane.
You know what's really great? Go ahead, John.
I still want to know what Super Saiyan 3 Nappa would look like if he just grows a badass beard.
Yep,
Oh
I can see it.
What I find actually really interesting is that this is something that Craig loves tropey, and this is a good example of, like, you love that trope, and I hate it. Like, I remember I went to see Boruto in theaters when they were showing it in theaters, and it's out on DVD now, and you can also go watch Boruto Next Generation, I think, currently on Crunchyroll.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual movie was airing a couple of years ago, I think back in, like, 2015 or something. And we went to see it, and I went to see it just because it was like, oh, anime movie with friends. I'm not super big into Naruto, but at least I'll probably have a good time because it's a bunch of nerds. And I was watching the film, and I was like, I actually really like this film. Why don't I like Naruto? And then they got to, like, a big final battle, and everybody just became these gigantic god-tier creatures, and I was like, oh, there it is. There it is.
But he had a cool training montage.
He did. But yeah, it's very interesting to me, because I can get it, though. There is that adrenaline rush of, oh, like, how are they going to outdo this thing? And to an extent, the ridiculousness of the overpoweredness of the two characters has got to be pretty intriguing to begin with. Just for me, it's just like, could you explain why he suddenly can one-shot somebody?
You're already saying the logic behind it is rather flawed in the fact that they're able to, through the sheer amount of training, how the hell did you go from this to this this untapped power that was never mentioned before? Again, going back to Dragon Ball, how did you get Super Saiyan 3 when it was never mentioned before? How did you become a Super Saiyan God? That was never even mentioned before, but apparently it was a thing.
With Dragon Ball, like, I almost was okay with it because there were those training montages, but so often in shonen, you just get, like, oh, I have an overpowered power because... Okay.
Because you need to one-up the villain somehow, right?
Yeah, sometimes there's no training whatsoever. Like, for example, there was a moment in Naruto that I absolutely loved, which was, I think it was Gaara versus Rock Lee. And it's one of my favorite fights, because you got, Gaara, who's, like, just throwing his shit around, his sand powers or whatever, and then...
Yeah, he's got his barrier and all that.
And then Rock Lee just takes off those weights. And then he's just suddenly, like, so powerful. And I was like, yeah! Fuck it! And I think...
That's like a classic Dragon Ball with the weighted gi and Piccolo with his weighted armor. You just take it off and you just essentially go like supersonic
speed. I think
speed.
that maybe that's the same hype that you're getting from people who just get like the god tier powers with no explanation. Maybe it's that same feeling.
In the case of Dragon Ball, or Dragon Ball Z specific, Akira Toriyama said that had explained and kind of admitted the reason why Super Saiyan was made in the first place. Not only was it to make things easier for drawing it, because filling in Goku's hair takes bloody age and a half.
Is easy to spike it?
That's the reason why his hair turns gold, rather.
Huh. Oh!
Because in the manga it's black and white, so therefore they didn't need to colour it in. But one of the reasons why there's such a huge power leap, and therefore every subsequent power leap has to get bigger and bigger, is because he made Frieza too powerful.
GG.
Fun fact, if I recall correctly, he intended to end it originally with Frieza, and then the editors kept telling him to keep going, so he's like, okay, I'm going to end it with Cell and go on. And then they're like, no, you got to keep going.
Yeah.
So then he tried to end it with Boo, and it's still going on.
Never end.
Dragon Ball Super. I hear very things.
Moving on, though. I am going to talk about something near and dear to my heart that, ironically, Craig mentioned before the start of the episode, and I forgot I'm in love with, but the tragic childhood friend that will never win in the end, because the tsundere character, or most of the time actually a tsundere character, ironic really,
yep.
Or another girl who just comes into the picture and later on tends to get the guy, but the childhood friend is always left in the dust. I hate it, but I also love it. It's a problem.
What are some good examples of this?
Some good examples of that you see that becomes a spoiler.
Oh, you're right.
I mean, like, I can mention tsundere characters, but like...
Well, would Love Hina be considered a spoiler at this rate?
I mean, I guess not. Love Hina's been out for a gajillion years. So, like, in Love Hina, for example, you've got the childhood friend who you find out he actually did make the promise with, but he goes with the... I mean, I guess you could classify her as a tsundere character. She does beat the crap out of him all the time.
She punches him.
But yeah, he doesn't end up going with her, or the childhood friend. He goes with the other character.
Naru, if I recall.
This anime is a couple years old now, so I guess it's okay. Sakura-so also had that in it as well. Pet Girl of Sakura-so had that trope in it as well.
It's like 2012.
To an extent, Toradora also had that same trope.
Shuffle had it.
Actually, never mind. Toradora didn't, because she wasn't a childhood friend, I don't think.
No. He just had a crush on her.
But so actually scratch Toradora, but yeah, Shuffle had that. God, it's in a lot of anime, and I think the reason why I find it to be so, I don't know, I guess I find it interesting because it's just like, I really want the childhood friend to win in the end someday. Maybe.
They will.
But also,
maybe,
it's just,
one day.
There's
but
something intriguing about rooting for something that you know is never going to be. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just a masochist, but...
You just like to root for the underdog, really. But it's interesting because you figure in, like, a realistic setting, the childhood friend would actually win out. But I suppose in a, like...
And you see, this is where Naruto did it right.
Yeah! He should have been with Sakura, but he went with Hinata. What the fuck
Oh,
is
now
wrong
we're just
with
going to
him?
throw down.
Bring it on. At the same time, I can see it, though, because he spends enough time with, like, a ex-girl here, then harem protag, in this case, would be like, man, I'm drawn to you because we hung out for, like, X number of months or a year or 2 years. I do actually care about you and all your flaws. Sorry, I made this promise with you back when I was, like, 5, 10?
I mean, that is a trope in of itself, the promises when you're a kid. I mean, I don't think we're going to discuss it, but I'm actually not particularly fond of that trope. I think it's stupid.
No, it's overdone, especially with the harem. I mean, we said Love Hina, but the premise of Nisekoi is very much the same of Love Hina, and the fact that main guy makes a promise to someone and He gets a harem.
What about you, John? What's your next trope?
My next trope that I really like, according to TV Tropes, because I checked it, is called Falling into the Cockpit. Falling into the Cockpit. And it's basically where in a giant robot series, whether it's Real Robot or Super Robot, the main character is just your average guy in the setting. There's nothing any really special about him, but happenstances ends up leading him to somehow ending up inside the cockpit of this hero mecha, and with no prior training, maybe there's a manual in there to tell him how
Nobody
to
reads
use
that
it.
Manual.
Or
fuck manuals. I don't read. This is why I just.
Admittedly, that only happened in Gundam, the original series, and every single Gundam series since, they kind of just like, no, they just know how to do it somehow.
They're all new types, clearly.
Although in Gundam Seed, it's because Kira reprograms the Gundam
I actually
himself,
really liked that.
Right
that was actually really cool.
I've never finished that show. I gotta go back.
But yeah, I don't know what it is about that I just love, and it's kind of cheesy, but I do love it. Some other examples of it beyond Gundam, because it is like half the Gundam series out there have that as the how the main character ends up in the giant robot in the first place.
How the opening act starts up.
Other examples are Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann.
Yep.
Macross Frontier.
That's a show I need to watch too. I hear good things.
Captain Earth.
Captain Earth. That show was a thing. I watched a good deal of it and then dropped it, and was just like, am I the only one who thinks that the show was super boring and had no character development? And then,
Captain Earth!
Yeah.
I do recall that.
And then I found out most of the internet agrees with me. And
I really enjoyed it.
Good production value with that
definitely.
show. It's
It was
just
real
the
pretty.
plot didn't go anywhere.
I can't remember. Did you like?
I really
Of course.
enjoyed it.
I feel bad because I feel like every show I'm like, this is garbage.
John's
John's in the background like, but I liked it though.
I'm sure there are shows that he thinks is garbage that you like.
But that's just the thing. Most of the things that people think are garbage and I like, I at least admit they're garbage. Because most of them are. Like, I don't know. Hero Manga Sensei.
How's it treating you?
I fucking love Euro Manga Sensei. It's a garbage fire, but I love that shit.
I've seen images, and it leads me to think it only gets better as the show goes on.
It's very weird, too, because I mean, we'll talk about Euro Manga Sensei another time, but it's totally garbage, but it has these, like, tiny little moments where it seems to be shining like gold, and then it just pours more garbage on top of those beautiful little gems that it's so sweet. And I'm just like, yep. Anyway.
So better than Oremo.
Yeah. But, we'll talk about Euro Manga Sensei on another episode. But yeah, I always did find it interesting how, even in Evangelion, that was to an extent the case, where they just got into the pilots or not in the don't get inside the pilots, oh god. Get inside the robots.
Whoa.
That is a different kind of series.
We don't have hentai episodes. But, there was an episode... There are many episodes of Evangelion. I can't talk today.
What are words?
I mean, hey, part of the fun of doing a podcast like this is that we're going to have mistakes. And we put those mistakes at the very beginning of the episode so everyone can listen to them before they go in. But anyway, when Shinji first pilots the robot, he just seems to do just fine. And then you got characters like Asuka, who apparently have been training most of their life, so it's like, interesting. I mean, to an extent, that's explained a little more later on. At least in Evangelion, they give you a reason why these kids later on are able to sync so well with their Evas, but from the get-go, it does look very similar to the whole plop a person in a mech, and off they go.
Yeah, some anime have their explanations as to why this inexperienced pilot is able to use it pilot the mecha so well. but others it's just like, and how can he do this? But I still love
anime,
why,
dog.
Because
why
anime.
do you love it? Is the question? Is it just that feel? Because I know that with the danderes and the tsunderes, we relate to those characters inherently, so that's why we might like them. And Craig loves his adrenaline rushes, so that explains his OP character fascination. And I just kind of like hurting myself, so the childhood friend thing makes sense. What is it about these, or is it also that OP feeling?
It's a little bit of the OP feeling, but it's also a little bit of when I play a new game and I'm just like, fuck the tutorial, pick up the controller and do stuff and figure it out as I go, which I really enjoy doing and is a power trip. And when there's mandatory tutorials that I can't skip, it just feels a bit of a drag. And also there's a bit of that fantasy of like, if I was to drop into a mech, how well would I do? I kind of would like to think I might have a shot at it, and I know that wouldn't be the case, but yeah, there's a bit of that fantasy of like, hey, could I do that? Maybe, please.
John wants to secretly pilot his own Gundam.
That.
I really, really want to fly to Japan and find one of those Gundam pods and be, I am the Gundam pilot.
When you said that, I thought you were going to say, I want to fly to Japan in a mech. And I got really confused.
Hey, if he had the power he would do it.
Voodoo, you do.
Oh, yeah. Now, there is a Gundam arcade game, which is a 180-degree screen and is designed to be a Gundam cockpit, and you actually pilot the Gundam how it's supposed to have been piloted in the original Gundam series, and it looks awesome, and I wish they existed here in the UK, and apparently some do, but I don't know where.
John, I don't want this dream of yours to come true, and I want to tell you why.
Why? Because
I feel like you're gonna get there, you're gonna sit in the cockpit, and you're immediately gonna die and ascend to heaven, and I'll never see you again.
Just has a stroke.
He's just gonna be like,
thing,
there's no point in living anymore, and then he just...
leave me in my virtual reality world.
He just floats away, and he's just like, I've done everything I need to do in life.
Leave me plugged in, Doc. I'm going in. Just freeze me. I don't need anything else besides this world that I'm now in part of. Hello.
Hello, Mota. Cycling it back around, Craig, what's your last trope that you want to talk about?
Last trope here we have is Monster of the Week. This is a trope. Hell, it could be... It's debatable if you call it a genre, but it's kind of tropey in the tokusatsu side of things, the magical girl side of things as well as Kamen Rider. I like them because I liked superheroes as a kid. I definitely loved the Power Rangers, and as a adult in my mid-20s, my friend, shoutouts to Zach, got me into a little thing called Kamen Rider. And at first I thought it was really cheesy, but you realize, man, as so long as it has a good plot and a good story with good character development, these Monsters of the Week scenarios will test the mettle of a certain individual, a part of the team. So, say, for example, in Power Rangers, they'll have their, their training montage, and they'll get their time to shine with a single one-on-one duel or something like that. And they all form up together and form the Megazord, and they'll take it down. And rinse and repeat that process over 50-some-odd episodes. Now, one may say, Craig, that gets a little boring watching the same thing day in and day out, especially with Sailor Moon, or Pretty Cure, or Sentai, or the Kamen Rider. But again, it's the writing and the characterizations that drive this. How these monsters make the people a part of the team grow as a unit and flesh them out individually. Or...
they also, each monster tends to present a new challenge. It's not like it's going to be the same monster every week. It's like this. There is some quirk about the monster that is going to make it hard. for...
Yeah, whether it is essentially hard for the team or they're a quote-unquote rival of one individual member of that team at the time. So, say, for example, in Pirate Sentai Gokaiger, there was a rival of the Blue Ranger in that one, and they would have frequent duels, and they would test each other to get each other, like, better in the process. Same with Pretty Cure and Smile Precure, they would have the monsters would team up against one designated person in that, so...
I think there's also just that, like, turn your brain off and enjoy kind of thing that comes with Monster of the Week kind of shows. Or even just Case of the Week. I know that I listened to your guys' take on Onihei last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is about basically in the same vein. And I know that that's one of the things, for example, and I won't spoil all of the episode if you haven't watched it or listened to it already. Shame on you. Why are you here? Go back an episode and then come back. But that was a dividing factor between you and Cammy, and I'm not going to say which way it went, but that was something that each of you had a different opinion on, which is very interesting, because that's kind of rounding out into what we're talking about today, that tropes in the end, it all just comes down to, in a lot of cases, I think, a suspension of disbelief. The suspension of disbelief, or in a lot of cases, just, this is what it is, and I'm going to watch it because of that. And that's what I think I like about Monster of the Week shows when I tend to turn them on, because I do it occasionally, is that I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah, that was going to be my question to you, Cass, is you watched the OG Sailor Moon, and you read the manga of it, but you don't strike me as one who likes the Power Rangers or the Sentai or the Kamen Rider because it can get formulaic?
I mean, I grew up watching Sailor Moon, so there's that nostalgia goggles thing. But the thing is also with Sailor Moon, it does have Monster of the Week, but there is also an underlying plot. Whereas I'm very a plot-heavy person, so if I'm gonna like a quote-unquote Monster of the Week or a Villain of the Week thing, it's gonna have something else going for it in a lot of cases.
The character.
Though there are exceptions to that rule. For example, Cardcaptor Sakura was basically Monster of the Week. It had a small underlying plot, but again, that's my nostalgia goggles, but I've gone back and watched Cardcaptor Sakura since, and I still love the shit out of that show.
It's getting a sequel, which says something, right?
Yep.
But
that comes out next year, right?
In January of 2018, I believe. But, and we're all going to be fighting over that fucking show. It's just going to come down to a dice roll, I think, between me and Cammy and John, but I will fight. It is my favorite childhood anime.
It's going to be the Weeb Space Hunger Games. You all are going to be thrown into an island, and
winner gets Cardcaptor Sakura. But anyway, but I think the thing that's intriguing about Cardcaptors isn't necessarily the cards that they're fighting, but or capturing, as it were, but the characters surrounding that entire makeup. And I think that if the characters fail, that's where Monster of the Weeks fail.
I just remember me and my friend Matt, shout-outs to him, way back when we watched Konami and the Dragon Ball Cardcaptors is the English version. Me and him were like, man, that Shaoran kid looks like Link from Legend of Zelda. He's got a sword, he wears like a green little getup. Let's watch this. And then we were just like, hey, this is like Pokemon, what the hell? They're capturing the monsters in cards, and they got a little yellow monster sidekick. That's interesting.
But that being said, segue, I think we're going to talk today and review an anime that takes a lot of tropes and then turns them on their head, which is pretty rad. So today we're going to be discussing KonoSuba, which I did not get the entire full name, but I will. I'm so good about this normally. I just typed in KonoSuba because last week in the outline we had Onihei, and that's all it was called, so I just put KonoSuba.
Yeah, you like the Japanese interpretation rather than like the abridged English
it's fine, but like even that is short because the full name of the show is KonoSubarashii Sekai ni Shukufuku. And it's abbreviated to KonoSuba, but I believe that the English translation is something like God gives blessings to this wonderful world or something like that. Right, so that out of the way. The synopsis of this shoe is, after dying a laughable and pathetic death on his way back from buying a video game, high school student and recluse Kazuma Sato finds himself sitting before a beautiful but obnoxious goddess named Aqua. She provides the NEET with two options: continue on to heaven or reincarnate into every gamer's dream. A real fantasy world. Dun dun dun! Never seen this in anime before. Choosing to start a new life, Kazuma is quickly tasked with defeating a demon king who is terrorizing villages. But before he goes, he can choose one item of any kind to aid him in his quest, and the future hero selects Aqua herself. But Kazuma has made a grave mistake. Aqua is completely useless. Unfortunately, their troubles don't end here. It turns out that living in such a world is far different from how it plays out in a video game. Instead of going on a thrilling adventure, the duo must first work to pay for their living expenses. Indeed, their misfortunes have only just begun. So, originally I selected this anime and passed it, or swam it as it were, because I watched season 1 with my significant other, and then proceeded to watch season 2. And normally we will tend to try going forward to just, limit our review to that season. But because we never reviewed season 1, I felt that we could just, do one gigantic batch. And assuming there is a KonoSuba 3 in the future, we can, grade it individually as well. And maybe we could just give each season its own rating when we get to the rating section. And of course, we will do this with every review going forward. For example, I know that me and Cami will be reviewing Rakugo Shinju in the future, and we will probably review both Season 1 and Season 2 individually, but the entire series itself as a whole in our review section. Just to give you guys a little heads up. I thought that might be a fun way to do it, and also to give our opinions on how these seasons differ from each other, which would be a conversation we would have anyway, assuming we had reviewed Season 1. So that being said, this was animated by Studio Dean, who has also done such lovely little gems like Sankarea Sakamoto Desu ka, and I just had to throw this on here, Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, which again we'll be reviewing in a couple of weeks. But this studio is great because they started out kind of, no, I wouldn't say silent, because they also did, my brain's dying right the moment, Higurashi, there we go, Higurashi no Naku Kuruni, which was very popular. But for the most part, they seem to be kind of a sleeper hit studio. And then recently they've made such wonderful things as Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju and also KonoSuba, which have really pushed their popularity through the roof. So that's pretty rad. But that being said, let's talk about this show. What do you guys think? Because I got things to say. I love this show. But I'm not going to say why yet, because I want to hear what you guys have to say.
So I watched it all within the span of 2 days, and me and you talked a little bit about it before we actually sat down and actually recorded. I feel as though, as a collective whole, I feel as though like it's. I don't want to show my hand while giving my initial thoughts, but it's very like the premise is very like a trope in of itself, a genre now, at this point where. Trapped in a fantasy world sort of thing. Oh no, that thing. Now everyone thinks that genre's toxic, but it's very lighthearted and comedic. I like the characters, I like the interactions that they have, and it's very quirky, charming, and it's a good time. Very good feels.
I really like the comedy of this series. I've watched a few comedies lately, and while I've enjoyed them, like, for example, Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which we've already done the review of. While I enjoyed those, they didn't necessarily make me laugh out loud. This made me laugh out loud on a number of occasions where just something was thrown out that caught me by surprise, and just, yeah, some of the things they do is tropey, but then, as you said, they subvert tropes, and there was just certain quirks that I just...
This entire anime is just one gigantic trope that they decided, like, hey, let's make fun of it. Which, I guess we should mention first the characters. And in and of themselves are very interesting tropes. For example, main character guy is a NEET. So, of course, he thinks he's going to be so OP in this world, and it turns out from the get-go, he's not very great, and when they're assigned their roles initially, he actually does worse than Aqua, who is a complete idiot. And he has to work arguably a little harder than everybody else, even though, he's that typical neat, I've been playing video games all my life character. You've got Aqua, who is, the goddess / healer of the group, but she's not very smart. In fact, her intelligence is below average. So, she's conceited, but she's also an idiot. Which makes, you don't want that out of your healer.
No, spending all of her ability points on party tricks.
Right, exactly. Or you've got,
Nature's Beauty.
You've got Megumin, who's your mage of the group.
And then flops because you can't even stand up because she's used up so much energy.
Yup.
Also,
and then
you've
got Darkness, who is your typical valiant knight character, but she's a total masochist and gets turned on by being hit or tied up or whatever. And also...
or abused in any way.
Exactly, or abused mentally or physically. It just gets her going. And she also misses a lot of her attacks because of this. So you go into this world where you expect the character to be OP and go on this grand adventure, when in reality, him and his entire party are essentially kind of useless. And by the end of 2 seasons, I won't consider this a spoiler, they haven't even made it out of the original town. They're starting town. So...
yeah, Axel is what it's called.
But I think it's the characters that really carry this show. And then I was going to open it up to discussion. Which I guess is where you were probably going to go anyway.
I was just going to comment by the fact that saying, so this is a turning the genre on its head. I wouldn't say this is a deconstruction or any sort of thing, trying to give a deep meaning, but even the job classes are extremities of themselves to a point where, like, if you think like a Dragon Quest or a Final Fantasy, where you have your typical classes, where these are just those classes but dialed up to 11. As you said, the Megumin is a wizard, which essentially uses so much power that she busts, and then Darkness is essentially the knight, which essentially is so dutiful that she essentially is just like, I'm gonna do it all, and I love it. And Kazuma's a thief who essentially, actually...
His trope, not trope, his character class isn't actually thief, it's...
just adventure, but it's interesting.
He has thieving skills.
Yeah. But if I were to, like, call him anything, I'd call him, like, a strategist. I'll, like, Fire Emblem a little bit.
I mean, he kind of has to be. Everybody else in his party's fucking stupid. And even he has his moments.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be the brains of the operation. It might as well be him.
Yeah.
And one thing I appreciate is that this didn't turn into a harem at all.
Yeah, I could see... Yeah. I mean, Kazuma, bless him, is a total pervert, but he never really tries to, like, say... lady.
Oh no, if anything, he wants to get away from these girls. He's just kind of like, oh my fucking god. You're all so stupid. Oh my god.
I mean, there was one episode, but yeah, it is circumstances.
I really think the show is trying to ship him specifically with one character.
Would you consider that's kind of a spoiler, right?
Because there's a couple instances where I feel they try and cause awkward situations that would be in a harem show, but I don't feel like all the girls are romantically interested in him. Though I guess we could have that debate.
I don't think any of them are.
Though we can have that debate in the spoiler room. But this didn't become like... It does have some harem tropes, such as, there's a lot of fan service in this show. Tons of it.
Aqua.
We could make, like, a drinking game out of, let's take a shot every time they show a pan into Aqua's ass.
That girl wears no panties. That.
She could be wearing
it's
a thong,
true.
We can't tell. They just give enough to the imagination. You don't know.
Mystery. But that is a short skirt.
Who is your guys' best girl?
Darkness. I told you this before we started recording.
The
Darkness. I think she
John
edges...
didn't know that. I'm asking in general to everyone.
Well, now they do.
Who's your best girl, John? I'm putting a gun to your head. You have 3 seconds. 3, 2,
It's gonna be
1.
It's gonna be
go.
Megumin.
I am actually really, really torn between...
You can only have one. Who is your best girl? Come on.
Clearly it's Wiz.
I'm gonna have to say Wiz then.
Yep, I see it.
Wiz is pretty great, and of course mine is Megumin, so we're all divided, and that's okay. It's okay for you guys to have shit taste. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. I actually love Wiz a lot, and Darkness a lot, too.
Shade.
And I think that's what's great about the show, is that there isn't a single character in the show that I dislike.
Yeah, even it's weird, because watching it all, outside of the main group, and Wiz, and the antagonists that they come
even
across.
The antagonists had likable aspects to them that you couldn't help but just... Yeah.
They were great, but I was just gonna say that, like, the guild equivalent of Mira Jane from Fairy Tail, that girl who gives the announcements and everything, and the guildmates, I didn't catch any of their names, but they definitely stood out. They seemed very likable characters.
So, like you said, like there's nothing really much to talk about, but like the spotlight characters, the antagonists, the main group, and even their friends, like Union, shows up later on. I'm not going to say who she is, but she is a character who's related to one of the other characters. And Wiz shows up later.
I like Union too.
Union's great. What I would argue, and to bring us back kind of into topic, I guess, is that the characters carry the show, because the plot here, it's a comedy anime, so while there is a small underlying plot, it doesn't have much progression, but that's because the show is focusing on its characters, and I think that's really where the show excels.
It seems like a fantasy daily life.
Yeah, like if you do not like the characters in the show, you're not going to like the show. It's just, that's how it's going to be. You have to like the show. You have to like the show's characters, because that is the main bread and butter. So if you don't like the characters and you're like, oh, I'll just stick around for the plot, good luck, Sally.
It's interesting, because I described Kazuma as the straight man to the insanity of everyone else, but even he is insane to some degree.
Yeah, he is. And that's the thing, he is just as ridiculous as them. It's just that he has a couple more intelligence slots than the rest of them do.
Yep.
And he does have his moments where he gets strung along and caught up in the moment, and afterwards he's like, I am a fucking idiot.
Yeah, he's a pervert, of course he is. But that's just the thing, like, the characters are what is the comedy in the show. They're, of course, put into situation, but it is a lot of the same gags over and over. But the cool thing about that is, even though they have a lot of the same gags, they always seem fresh and new, because they always put them in these different situations. And that's what I find very entertaining about the show, but I know that a lot of people will criticize it for as well. But
where they could be drawn out, essentially.
Like, why do you need to focus on these specific... Like, a lot of people like to point to the fact that they've got, like, the frogs that like to, like, chew on the people or whatever. And
I find that fucking hilarious.
Exactly,
I don't care what they say.
Season 1, and it's also in Season 2, and people are like, you're reusing this gag, and it's like, well, yes, to an extent, yes, but you've got different characters now that are involved in it, and their reactions, and that's where it's great.
There are two types of women.
Yes.
Yes, that gift set.
But yeah, so I think characters-wise, this show really excels. Comedy-wise, it's going to be whether it's your cup of tea or not, and comedy is super subjective. Please see episode, I don't freaking know, 18? I think we talked about that. Or 19?
Yeah, the Daily Boys episode.
Podcast, so it's fine. But what about art?
19.
What about production values in this show?
Obviously, it goes without saying that the first season seemed very okay. Didn't seem like it, like, the animation, when it only excelled in season 1, it only excelled with big, bombastic fight scenes against the antagonist. The magical spells seemed very good, but it goes without saying, season 2, the characterizations, the derpy faces, the comedy, their facial expressions amplified so much more because increased budget.
Yeah, they had moments where it's like, okay, this is where they're saving the budget, but that wasn't exactly a detriment to the series. Another thing about the studio itself, though, is that they're kind of known for having these sort of, every so often, these derpy bits of animation that just looks weird, and they often get made fun of it by it, but in KonoSuba, they kind of was like, so guys, and I believe this was actually a joke that Cassie brought up. This is something Cassie pointed out to me. And they were just like, so guys, you know how we have these moments where we just start with our animation? How about we just make a series about that?
Yeah, basically just find the best thing, the best source material to implement this. And to an extent, yes and no, I agree with Craig. Because I don't believe that the animation in Season 1 was bad. I think actually it was... Well,
no, I didn't say
you
it was
made
bad.
It sound it that way.
That was okay. No, sorry, I didn't.
But,
no, it's good. It's just, they obviously saved for bombastic.
And to an extent, I don't agree. Like, I feel like the Season 1, while there were moments that were obviously much more budget heavy, I don't feel like the rest of the show felt like we're saving our budget. I felt that it was maybe average, but I don't feel like they were saving... Because when I think of saving budget, I think of Evangelion at the end, where they were literally doing pencil drawings.
Were they just sitting in the same room, just talking to each other the entire time? Okay,
I did not get that feeling while watching Season 1. I didn't feel like... To be fair, I don't even think it was the bombastic scenes. I think, like what John pointed out, the facial animations in Season 1 were just as good as Season 2.
I'd probably have to go back and double check that, because maybe it's just me not paying close enough attention to the facial expressions, but maybe they got closer up and they actually showed them, like, doing, like, shock face.
But, I mean, like, see, even episode 1 of Season 1 is just full of Aqua's derpy faces.
Yes, where she's freaking out and crying.
But I will agree that I think that Season 1 was good, and then in Season 2 they just took a buffer and they took an increased budget because KonoSuba 1 was so popular, and they were able to add a little more oomph. And in that regard, I'll agree. I just don't want people to think that Season 1 is badly animated or subpar compared to Season 2.
No, it's good.
I think it's just as good as Season 2. It's just that Season 2 had more money to throw around.
Yeah, because obviously Season 1 premiered in 2016, and then Season 2, just this winter season.
And KonoSuba exploded. It was so fucking popular.
Yeah.
But John, how did you feel about, other than the derpy faces, did you feel like there was a difference in quality spike? Did you feel, in general, it's all good? Like, how do you tell me about your feelings.
How does that make you feel?
Tell me about your feelings, John.
Whoa. ASMR. Cass, you should do that the rest of the episode.
No.
So, there were moments where I was like, oh, that was some really pretty animation, but there wasn't any moments that I was like, they should have spent more time on this. It felt pretty good to watch for pretty much the entire thing. It was just like there was some moments where it was like, okay, they put a bit more budget into this than they did for the rest of it. But yeah, it's not like there was any like, and now they are going to stand still and let flaps.
I mean,
there wasn't any scenes like that.
Or at least ones that were noticeable.
There was stuff going on.
There wasn't any like noticeable scenes where they were standing around for a million years just talking. I will agree with...
I mean, there were some slower moments where they were just sitting around the table, but they would change angles to show, like...
Make it dynamic.
Yeah, even that wasn't static. Exactly.
I will agree with Craig on one thing, in that, like, I think it was, like, either the last episode or the second to the last episode of Season 2 had probably more budget in it than the entire fucking show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is just fucking up the ante with everything
really
involved.
Cool, and I didn't see coming. So they do treat you to some very interesting moments. Like, for example, like, with Kobayashi's Maid Dragon, the scenes where they were, like, fighting in the courtyard, or not courtyard, in the field or whatever. That's kind of like how I would compare it to KonoSuba, is that for the most part, all of the animation in Miss Kobayashi's Maid Dragon was real good, but then there were these moments where they like upped the ante for no fucking reason, and it was great. It was a nice treat. I was already enjoying myself, and then you just kind of gave me like a little piece of strawberry shortcake, and I'm like, oh wow, how did you know this was my favorite food? And
wouldn't you know it? They got you. They know exactly what you want.
I think music in the show was very eh.
It was very serviceable. There was a lot of cues that fit the mood. Darkness always had her own theme every time.
Darkness is great.
Yeah.
Darkness is fantastic. She's a precious flower.
There's one scene involving Darkness where I really loved the fact that they had dramatic music playing, and then it would cut it, then it would be darkness, and the music would just stop. And then back to the character, and dramatic music would carry on, and then back to darkness and stop.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, they did utilize music in the show in a very interesting way. It's just that there's, like, no tracks in my head that, like, I'm like, oh, I need to go and listen to this right now. But yeah, how they utilized it in moments like that was pretty rad.
I was talking to Pete yesterday about this, how they utilize music in the fact where with comedic timing is very poignant. It makes me laugh because they'll build up a moment, then they'll completely break tension, and then they'll make a blunt statement, and then they'll just, with all the audio, just cut out and just be like, the statement, and then I'm like, holy cow, that's very well done.
They had a lot
very
of
well
fun
done
with their comedic timing in the show, and I can't say enough how much I appreciated that as somebody who's very on comedy, typically to begin with. And there's a lot of, like, stupid humor in this, and even I was laughing, which says something.
It goes back to the episode of Daily Lives of High School Boys where Zach compared this to, like, just threw them all into a recording room and they just let loose. I feel as though the voice cast in this, Jun Fukuyama and them, just...
Oh, they had a great time.
Had a blast.
All of them did amazing.
Yes.
And they really got into their characters as well. I loved every time Megumi screamed, "Explosion!"
I just like the fact that Darkness stammered and stuttered over, like, almost every word, and she's like, I'll do this, and then get the 11 beat crap
and when she
out
would
of her.
just get super into it, and I was, like, almost uncomfortable with how, like legit she sounded turned on by the situation. Like, yeah, the voice cast was great. The production on this show was amazing. Now, here's a real question. How'd you boys feel about the fan service? Because we talked about it for, like, 2 seconds, and then we moved on. But, like, how did you feel? Because, like, to me, it was annoying at times. I know especially there was an episode with Darkness that I was just kind of like, okay. But for the most part, it was okay.
Would you call that a spoiler?
I would, which is why I'm going to talk about it more in the spoilers section. But there was one episode. I'm just saying that there was one episode with her specifically, and it was in season 2.
I think I recall what you're saying.
There was water involved and a fist fight.
Now I know what you're talking about.
That scene to me was a little much.
At first, I thought they were talking about the one at the tail end of season 1.
We can talk about it in the spoilers room. But yeah, there were moments where the fan service to me was a little much. But for the most part, I was able to ignore it because I was just having such a good time.
Same. I never felt as though it was too, like...
I mean, it was in your face sometimes. Let's not lie there.
It was in your face, but at the same time, I was okay with it. But then again, my tolerance for fan service as a whole is very okay, where I'm just like... I don't know if this counts as a spoiler, but there are succubi in there, and
but that didn't
it's
bother
just
me
like,
so
hey,
much
that's
because
the
they're
thing.
succubi.
Yeah. There were some moments where I was like, please, nobody walk in on this. This would be a terrible time for someone to walk in.
Every time darkness.
We'll have to have you tell that story. If not now, at some point. Actually, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. Let our viewers get to know you a little better. Tell us the story, John.
I was going to say, when he said fish, I thought the bear was pecking using his super, but okay.
So, many, many years ago, I had an anime called Blue Submarine 6. Okay. And family was out, and I decided to use the living room TV to watch this particular series. When, just timing, there's this one scene where, and for some context, the quote-unquote bad enemy army, you've got humans versus sort of these, like, humanoid mutated aquatic life forms, like fish, sharks, and various other things. And they can breathe on land, but they have to switch between gills and lungs. And there's this one scene where the main character pulls out this girl, this fish girl called Meteor, from this sort of mech kind of thing. But while she was in the mech, she was using her gills. And so he's pulled her out of there onto land, and so therefore she's got this moment where she's woken up and got this big muscular guy on top of her, pinning her down because she's woken up and started struggling, but she's also switching between her gills and her lungs, so she's struggling to breathe a bit. And it's during this scenes that my family comes back, and just instantly they just see this naked-looking woman because she's a fish and therefore not wearing clothes. No details there, so just... Anyway, with this guy pinning her down while she's gasping for air, and they're just like, "What are you watching?" And my instant reaction is, they're fish. She's a fish.
It's a fish! To quote Lilo and Stitch, it's fish! Anyway, moving on, back to KonoSuba. God, I don't know what else to talk about. It's a good show. It's got good production value. Story's great. Story is meh, but there is no story, and characters are great. So the only other thing that I can say, I'll say in the rating section, but are you guys ready to rate this piece?
Yep.
The one thing about the characters that I just really loved was any moment where characters were just like, Kazuya! And he was like, yeah, I'm Kazuya.
Yep, I made the exact same comment where he would always just acknowledge his name.
Yes, I'm Kazuma.
Kazuma would always have this witty comment in the background where they would have a conversation and he would just comment above it, so subs-wise it'd be on the top, and you'd have to look at the two conversations as his commentary is going on while they're having a conversation the entire time. It's pretty humorous.
They'll be making statements and he'll just be in the background going, yep, that's true. That happened. Yep. Yep. Yes, I'm Kazuma.
But yeah, that was another part that made the show really entertaining. Would you like to have that lead into your rating of the two seasons? So you'll rate season 1 and you can rate season 2.
All right. So I loved season 1.
Okay.
Yeah, it had moments where I was just laughing out loud and great. I know it's not going to be for everyone, but even if you are starting to get a bit tired of the fantasy world setting that seems to be the go-to setting now, just give it a try. It's aware of itself, it's poking fun at itself, and it's great for that. So
what does that go to ratings-wise? Love it? For both seasons?
I love it. Yeah, I'll give it love it for both seasons, because I really enjoyed second season as well. Like, pretty much just as much as first season.
What about you, Gregory?
Okay, it's interesting I know I've been making references to episode 19, Daily Lives of High School Boys, where I said I love that show. I would say I love that this show, although much like Nichibro's, it has its up and down points where some parts are tropey, some parts are quiet, but the comedy does stick and it's very enjoyable throughout. I feel as though, and we didn't really touch upon this, the comparisons to season 1 to season 2, but season 1 was more quick, snappy. It was very episodic in nature, whereas season 2 had a through line a little bit with bigger story arcs. Since there are 10 episodes a pop, season 2 had one story arc that led into a mini arc after that, I want to say, and then they finished off with what me and Cass both described it as a weak finish. But it was still very enjoyable throughout. I love the character interactions. I love the world. However, they didn't get anywhere closer to their goal. Without going too deep into it, they kind of randomly ran across things that would advance the quote-unquote plot of the game. The flags, essentially.
Cool. Okay. Well, I guess it's my turn then. And a lot of the gripes I have with this show, I'll probably have in our spoiler room. Like Craig said, I believed that season 2 did not finish as strongly as season 1, which led to me enjoying season 1 a little bit more. I felt that season 1 was a hilarious, fun ride the entire way through, and season 2, for the most part, was the same, and then for some reason just dropped off at the end. For I don't know what reason. I felt that they let a story arc go on too long, and it wasn't as funny.
Yep.
Maybe also because they were focusing on a character that I don't necessarily care for, and at the end I still did not like her as much as I liked her at the beginning. But we'll drop that into the spoiler room as well. But overall, I felt like this was a great and fun thing. And another thing I want to mention is I watched this show with my boyfriend from beginning to end, and that increased my enjoyment of it a ton. I feel like KonoSuba is a show that is really fun to watch with friends, and I wish I had watched with one of these gentlemen, because hearing either of them laugh hysterically would have been great. Especially John. He emotes so hard. But
yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because you watched it with your boyfriend, and we talked about the enjoyment after rewatching. Comedies are worth rewatching with others because it amplifies the enjoyment.
But yeah, and that definitely adds to my enjoyment of it. But standing alone, it's also great. I think the production value is wonderful. I think the characters are great. Other than one slight hiccup in season 2 where I was mildly annoyed, I can't give this any less than a love it. I was tempted to give season 2 a like it, just because of that hiccup at the end, but when I think back on it now, it's not worth really downing the entire season for one instance of why.
Yeah, it's like 3 episodes out of like 7.
Exactly. And again, the show is 10 episodes for season 1 and 10 episodes for season 2, so it's definitely something that you could marathon or just watch as a nice little, pick-me-up. I think this is a great turn your brain off show, and honestly, if you're thinking too much while watching it, you're doing it wrong. But yeah, I'm probably going to give both seasons a love it too. And so that's a solid love it across the board, and that says something. We haven't given away a lot of love it's on this show. So I would definitely, if you're listening and you haven't watched KonoSuba or you do not know what it is, go ahead and give Subarashii Sekai Shukufuku at least a couple of episodes to watch, because if you watch the first couple episodes and you like it a lot, then you're going to get more of the same, only with more characters and more wacky antics. So,
I could recommend this to people, but Zach, on the other hand, I don't know if he would enjoy it, despite liking Nichi Bros. I don't know.
And that's the thing, this is not going to be for everyone, but I personally feel that everybody, at least here today on this podcast, loved this show, and that says something, because we all have varied taste. Even early on in the show, we made that joke that everything that John loves, I seem to hate, and that's not true in this case. Let's be honest, and that's not true. Me and John have bonded over a lot of anime over the years. But we all do have very different tastes, and what somebody finds funny is going to be different across the board, but we all had a great time and laughed our asses off while watching this show, so. I would say we personally love it, but, go and give it a shot yourselves. It gets a heavy recommendation from the Annie Chatbox cast. There you go. So, spoiler room time. So, if you don't want to be spoiled, get out, go follow our Twitter, or follow our Patreon or something. Just you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. But yeah, we're gonna jump into some spoilers now and talk about things that may spoil. Spoil a comedy show. How awkward does that sound? So Aqua's arc is the thing I want to talk about in season 2, because it annoyed me. I never hated Aqua, but out of the entire cast, she kind of annoyed me the most.
Yeah, she's just very there. She was there. She complained a lot, and she's very pretentious
the end of season
about
2,
herself.
They have that arc where they go off to the hot springs place or whatever, where she has a sect, and I felt like that entire thing could have been done in 2 episodes or 1.5 episodes. It just dragged on for so long, and it wasn't funny.
Here's the thing. When it wasn't, and that's sad when I'm at the end of this season and I'm on episode 7 and I watched all these literally this morning, and I look at it and I'm like, is the episode almost over? Can I skip this? Should I just scrub the timeline to find something good? And then I'm like, I'm defeating the purpose of this comedy when I want to scrub the timeline to try and find, when it ends. So, yeah.
Yeah, there were bits about that last arc that I enjoyed.
Well, there were bits that I enjoyed, too. The moment, where they were in the confessional or whatever.
That was good.
Yeah. Also, people's instant reaction finding out that Darkness is of the Eris sect.
Yeah, that was amusing too.
Yep, and they immediately dismiss him.
Instant heel turn, walk away, glance back,
everyone
spit,
trying to recruit Kazuma was pretty great too. Like the little girl who was trying to get him to sign the paper.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oni-chan! But yeah, I mean, there were, don't get me wrong, there were definite moments of comedy gold in that section. It's just that a lot of it wasn't. Especially with
the overall arc in...
Especially moments that focused on Aqua herself.
Hot Springs.
Because she's just kind of a meh character to me. And that's personal, but... I don't know, like, even the, like, big battle at the end, which was beautifully animated, was just kind of like, why? It was just kind of like, why is this here? I appreciate it, but, like...
Yeah, I didn't, when he announced he's one of the generals of the Dark Empire, Dark Emperor, or whatever, I was like, what? Oh, okay, that was kind of a thing, just coming out of nowhere.
Because...
But, I mean, like, all of the other ones they introduced was, like... You know what I mean? Like, all the other, like, generals they introduced, it didn't feel that way. It felt like, you know, they just, like, for example, when, you know, Megumi was blowing up the castle. And, like, one of them comes down and was like, bitch, stop blowing up my castle!
Whatever his name was.
Yeah, and then,
just
like,
stop it!
You know, they find out that he is, part of the Demon King or whatever's army is interesting. And to an extent, I also thought it was pretty cool with Wiz that you found out that she used to be part of the army or whatever, and then she had her reasons for leaving, and that she never really meant to hurt anyone in the first place. And then you got I can't remember his name, the mask guy in season 2, and I loved all of his interactions between him and Darkness. Those were fantastic.
Sorry, it's Vanir. By the looks of it, I'm looking here on Wikipedia.
Yeah, Vanir.
Veneer and Verdia for the Dolan.
Yeah, I loved his, like, this is my idea of how I want to die. I want to just die with that one last fuck you.
The characters are amazing, but, like all of those moments compared to Aqua's final arc in season 2 were just so meh. So meh.
Cass, tell me about the water.
Oh, okay, so there's that episode where she's supposed to be married off to somebody else, or whatever, and that entire episode, in my opinion, especially towards the end, was just, hey, let's see how far we can push our fan service with Darkness this episode. That were ripped up, and then they sprayed water all over her, so of course you got the see-through t-shirt thing, her boobs are bouncing around constantly, and then they have her do push-ups or something. I can't remember.
So maybe this is just me probably selling myself out. I probably shouldn't say anything, but I was like, she's turned on during this entire fight, isn't she? Maybe her nipples are a little jutting out there. Maybe it's a little cold. Also, is that water when she passed out? Or what's going on? Did she get off? Or is that water? Because that's very, could be misconstrued there.
Their boundaries, that episode, and maybe some people would find that funny or intriguing, but to me it was just like a huge turnoff.
I think it was really just, I can see why you'd be uncomfortable with it. Me, I was just like, okay, this is just her culmination of her masochism dialed up to 12 instead of the 11. And then in the next arc, you have her being dragged by a caravan.
Was hilarious.
And I was like, okay, this is so stupid.
It was
so fucking stupid.
I actually loved that episode too, because like every time somebody was like thanking their party for doing something amazing, Kazuma's just in the background going, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
We caused this.
I don't deserve this money. Are you sure? And then there's the episode before that where I think it was either the velociraptors or the ostriches were fucking stampeding towards them, and she was like, I'm gonna defend you all, and everyone's like, oh man, she's gonna fucking save us all, and then one shoots a binding spell, and she fucking blocks it, and she's like, panting heavily, you can see her breath. I'm like, holy cow.
Hey man,
this girl
I actually really liked that.
It's a trip.
like, I don't know. To an extent, I was kind of annoyed sometimes, but I do like that they had, like, a really silly, fun, masochistic character.
Yes. Again, it's her character archetype as the Paladin Crusader Knight dialed up to a point where she's so into her job that
yeah, like it's like
she
masochism that's used for comedy, but in a way that it's almost kind of clever. So I wasn't super offended by it.
Yeah, it's like it rides the line, but I find it
tasteful
more than anything.
In the episode with the water and the marriage or whatever. But are there any spoilers you want to discuss, John? I feel like we're kicking you under the bed or something. You've been relatively quiet.
You could talk about how Union was fucking shafted.
I think that's the point, though.
Oh, as her character's essentially ignored?
The joke is constantly she's trying to get Megumin's attention, and nobody pays attention to her.
She's the older sister?
No, she was a friend. Well, she wanted her to be her friend.
Yeah. The pair were both loners in school, and
okay,
she was a bit more desperate to make a new friend.
Union is always calling Megumi and her, like, rival or whatever, but in reality, she really just wants to be friends with her. That's the joke.
Okay.
I feel bad.
Yeah.
For her.
Poor Union. I was during that last arc where Eddie, it cut to her, and she was like, "Hey, are you there?"
With, like, gifts and stuff.
Oh, is anyone home?
I actually loved one of the things that made me laugh the hardest was when Union and Megumin grabbed the stone or whatever together.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like,
oh,
it showed,
yeah,
like, how pathetic both of them really are.
It brings you closer, I swear. It worked, didn't it?
Just Megumin just grabs the thing and smashes it on
I loved Megumin so much. It's inhumane how much I'm in love with Megumin.
Yeah.
On to the subject of Megumin and fan service. There was that one episode where Megumin and Kazuya got back to the mansion, both covered in slime, and they had that banter about who was going to use the bath first.
Oh, right.
And she tried to call him out on it and was like, well, if you don't see me as a woman, then we can just share the bath together. And he was so unfazed. He was like, sure, why not? And when she was actually back down, he'd gotten so into the moment that he called her out on it. Yeah. He was like, what are you fucking doing? This is going to bite you in the ass later.
You see, that was just wacky, and I didn't view that really as fan service, more wacky hijinks. The thing that stuck out to me is she just kept calling him a lolicon and, like, a pedo neat. I'm just like, oh, that's fucking savage. I feel
like everything, like, all the interactions between Megumin and Kazuma seemed very much like a brother and sister fighting. And it seemed like that way also with Aqua, whereas I feel like a lot of his interactions with Darkness were almost romantic at times. It was weird.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments, as you said,
the show is shipping him in Darkness. It's just how I feel.
Well, and I kind of see it.
It is, right? Like the story where he went to Hell's Door, the succubus tavern or whatnot, to get a sweet dream, and then he thinks the whole entire bath scenario in season 1 was a dream sequence, so he was acting all cocky or whatever, but she's all embarrassed and flustered, so it's like, I think she does dig him, but then he'll openly say, you're hot, but you're not my type because you're a fucking freak, or... Yeah.
Physically, you're my type,
but... he has his moments, though.
Personality-wise?
Where it seems like he might be interested, I feel. Especially in that episode with the quote-unquote good dream. Like, he realizes that, like, when she walks in, that, you know, hey, I can roll with this. He is attracted to her. Obviously, or he wouldn't have gone through with some of the things that he did. Wash my back, and then he wanted her to put her boobies on his back. And she almost did! That's the thing!
She was embarrassed and it is cute, to be honest. I will say, it's like, that side of her where she completely, like, flustered and, like, embarrassed the entire fucking time, where he's just, like, so nonchalant, and he's just such a player in a management position. He's like, I'm the master of this domain. This is my dream. Yo, ladies.
Yeah, she almost refers to him as, like, a great match for her just because he can...
Yeah, it's like, when she was listing off all of these, like, qualities that if she was seeing in a man, and I was like, so Kazuya?
Exactly, he's perfect for her.
So, yeah, really, if they ever did get together, it'd be interesting. I don't think
the show would ever go there, but it does seem like they're trying to ship it. The only other person I feel like they kind of shipped him with was kind of Megumi, but at the same time, I feel like all of their interactions seem more like bickering between siblings, but that's a personal, like, thought. But I never felt during the series that they were trying to make siblings. It parody, even though there are a lot of girls. I mean, there is that almost kiss with Wiz, too. But I feel... I feel like...
Oh, I do recall
But
that.
at the same time, I feel like Kazuma is just... And I don't take this personally, but I just think he's just a guy. Like, he's just a guy. There's a cute girl who's trying to touch him, so he's like, yeah, gimme.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fine, I guess.
Yeah.
It fits his
There's
perv
nothing really
trait.
wrong with that.
And I'm not saying all men are pervs, I'm just saying he's really pushing that whole perv guy kind of thing.
Cass, I
think everybody's a pervert. Can I just be blunt? Everybody is. Some people are just better at hiding it than others.
What are you talking about, Cass? I thought you were a perfect angel.
Oh, I am. I'm an exception to the rule. Anyway.
I'm waiting for the Thunderbolt to randomly crash into your room now.
Can you stay out of my room? I will not reveal my secrets.
I know about your cherry folder.
Hey now.
I know what you did last summer.
I know what you did last summer. Anyway, guys, I feel like we've talked about everything we need to talk about. How do you feel?
Yep.
Let's get out of here. I want to get wasted and play video games.
I'm good.
Alright, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in today. And again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot us an email. We would love to hear from you and see how we can make this podcast better. We've obviously been keeping up with this for 21 weeks now, so we want to keep doing this. We want to keep giving you guys content to listen to, but we need to know exactly what it is you love and what it is you hate. So if you want to shoot us an email at anniechatmail@gmail.com, we would definitely appreciate it. But that being said, thanks for tuning in to episode 21. We are going to celebrate by us being over 21, going and getting us some booze. It'll be great. Have a good night.
Before we head out, also review us on iTunes so we can
that'd be pretty
stand out amongst the crowd. Give us a like, thumbs up, stars. We'll be stars, baby. And just let us know.
Oh, actually, one more shout out before we go. We keep going. Oh, we're leaving, but fun story. So my 5-star review finally got read on the AAA, or Anime Addicts Anonymous podcast, and they outed me for not saying which podcast we are. So I was the one who gave you the 5-star review. I don't know if any of you listen, but if you find it, mystery solved.
Listen, I don't think
probably not, but on the off chance they do find it.
No, anything.
I have said my piece. Now they know who we are. If they listen, there's the crossfire.
Christ. Oh no.
Anyway,
no.
Let's get out of here, guys. I want to make bad life decisions. Oyasumi.
Peace.
Bye-bye. Alright. Time to bust out the expensive bubbly we've been hiding under the beds.